By the dawn's early light in Kiev, everybody could see what the US president so proudly hailed, NATO's star-spangled banner above Ukrainian territory. In this quartet, English is a language of choice. The wife of the Ukrainian president, Katerina, was born and raised in the United States. Yet George W. Bush did learn how to say hello in Ukrainian, especially addressing the country's troops.
Вітаю, воїни!
But his greeting didn't bear well with many Ukrainian people. If the US president hoped for a warm reception, that's certainly not what he got. Thousands of people gathered in front of the American embassy in Kiev to express their opposition to the NATO plans. Some have even translated their message into English.
We not welcome North Atlantic terrorist organization. We know that CIA is behind of that organization. Not American peoples, but you are mercenaries. It's why we come here, and it's why we say, Bush, go home! Bush, go home! Bush, go home!
Over the past few years, the United States has put millions of dollars into various pro-democracy programs in Ukraine. Well, this is what democracy in this country amounts to. Everybody can burn a dummy of the US president.
As protesters were marching through the city center, Lawrence Ball, an engineer from Alabama, was looking on. He says rallies like these show that US policies in the country are succeeding.
This is what democracy is about. You might not like what they're saying, but they have the right to say it.
The US president also talked at length about democracy. And while praising the Orange Revolution, he wasn't inspired by the latest rallies.
Just because there was a bunch of, Soviet-era flags in the street yesterday, you shouldn't read anything into that.
His Ukrainian counterpart, Viktor Yushchenko, also took issue with the flags.
It's not surprising that several hundred people with red banners gathered on Independence Square. It's symbolic, actually. You know that the events of Holodomor happened under similar red flags. The people who raised them were in charge of repressions in Ukraine and killed millions of Ukrainians.
Holodomor, or the Ukrainian famine of the early 1930s, is a favorite topic for Ukrainian leaders. They say it was an act of genocide committed by the Soviet regime and that Russia has to pay compensation to the victims' families. Moscow insists that the famine was indiscriminate and killed not only Ukrainians but also Russians and Belarusians alike. As it often happens, the Americans have also got involved.
Holodomor is an American term created by James Mace, an American historian, to define the ethnic genocide of Ukrainians. What should also be said here is that the ethnic selectiveness during Holodomor has no proof. Some 7 to 8 million died back then. 3.5 million of them lived on the territory of Ukraine, but there were also Jews, Poles, Russians and Georgians among them.
But what has the famine of the 1930s to do with nature? According to the Ukrainian president, there is a direct link.
If you look at the history of the Ukrainian state with so many tragedies that happened, it's easy to conclude that only a system of collective responsibility, collective security, that can provide international guarees for Ukrainian sovereignty is the best response to the challenges that currently exist in society and in the international system.
But so far, these arguments haven't convinced the Ukrainian people. According to polls, about 60% of the population is against joining NATO. Yulia Zinova, one of many Ukrainians who were educated in the United States, says Ukrainian authorities still have to learn how to talk and listen to their people.
Politicians try to say what they think about NATO and why is it good or why bad. But we were never provided with solid information on what NATO is and what they do in the world and how it can influence our life in the future.
As a reminder of her time in the United States, Yulia still keeps a quarter in her purse.
I've been keeping it for good luck.
She now hopes that following the American eagle won't lead her country into yet another political abyss. Oksana Boyko, Russia Today,